A young Chinese streamer cooks cheap, delicious meals, carefully tracking her budget to make sure she spends no more than $1.30 per day. A trend known as geohacking emerges, where young Zoomers escape the nightmarish living cost of the West by moving out to cheap countries such as Albania and Georgia, where you can live on as little as $300 per month. And finally, the biggest, baddest, Giga Chad final boss of them all, a young man who, after graduating high school and like many of you, feeling quite lost in life, decided to venture out straight out into the wilderness, hunt and forage his own food, even build his own log cabin, and just live a peaceful, meaningful existence with nature. Just him and his dog. No BS 9-to-5 job and degenerate modern society required. A recent report came out that this year's college graduates are facing perhaps the worst job market ever. The AI revolution happened way faster than anyone expected and is already causing what they call an entry-level job bloodbath. Not to mention, as I'm sure all of you already know, the job market was already total trash before all this even happened. This made me realize that what we're doing right here on this channel might be more important now than ever. Gen Z already rightfully never wanted to work these soulless 9-to-5 jobs, getting paid dogshit wages and being exploited for corporate profits. And with traditional 9-to-5 jobs rapidly dying in front of our very eyes as we speak, escaping the 9-to-5 rat race is no longer a luxury, but a necessity at this point. You know how they always tell Gen Z, you guys need to get a real job. Not everyone can be an influencer. The hilarious irony in all of this is that with how bad the traditional job market is, the same logic now applies to quote-unquote real jobs now too. Statistical data and anecdotal evidence all confirm the same thing. There just aren't enough jobs for everyone anymore, and even the few ones remaining pay total absolute dog shit. Success isn't about finding a job anymore. It's about finding a way to survive and thrive without one. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today. Before we kick things off, let's establish a few quick ground rules here. The 3 examples I'm going to be highlighting in this video are purely unique, creative, and likely strategies you've never heard of before. And most importantly, they're all things that anyone can do. Nothing like dropshipping or crypto trading. Everybody already knows about those. There's already countless videos about those. You don't need my help for that. Best of all, these all require little to no initial investment. As I understand, the most frustrating thing about all these start your own business ideas is that you have to invest such a hefty initial amount that most of us just don't have in this economy. So, with that being said, let's get this show on the road. Part 1, Revenge Saving. We're going to kick things off with a familiar face that you may recognize from my Gen Z Revolution video last week, Xiao Jai Jai. Gen Z is waking up and checking out of this BS rigged game modern society wants you to play. And perhaps nowhere is this more pronounced than in China, where young people have gotten so fed up with this horrible job market and the unrealistic pressure to succeed that they've gone from quiet quitting to outright letting it rot. They've been looking for any way possible to escape the 9-to-5 rat race, and they've discovered some very interesting strategies. Perhaps the best one is what they call revenge saving. This is where you spend as little as humanly possible to avoid working a 9-to-5, and also, as this comment puts it perfectly right here, not spending hurts those in power. The best professionally unemployed revenge saver I could find is the streamer Xiao Jai Jai, a young Chinese woman who gets by on spending just 10 Chinese yuan, or about $1.30 per day. She does this by spending most of her time cooking the cheapest possible meals without sacrificing health or taste. A lot of the meals she cooks legitimately look delicious and healthy, not to mention the additional health benefits you get from not having an asshole boss scream in your face 8 hours a day. Now, in the last video I mentioned her, a lot of you were skeptical that this strategy could work in the West. Some of you doubted that these meals were really healthy, others pointed out that with how insane inflation has gotten in recent years, there's no way it would be that cheap anymore, even with revenge saving. These were fair concerns, so I decided to try it out for myself just to see how much it would cost and if this strategy is truly viable. So I looked up some of the most cheap and delicious meals you could cook without sacrificing health and nutrition, and this is what I came up with. These oatmeal banana pancakes are great for breakfast. I made these myself actually the other day. They have a very good complex carb profile and cost less than $1 to make per serving. Red lentils are very cheap and a great source of plant protein, and they can easily be made into lentil bread or tofu, which increases their volume dramatically and even gives you days worth of food for less than $1. Vegetables are also very cheap and can be added to ramen cooked with some eggs or meat to give you a fantastic combination of taste with plenty of nutrients, carbs, and protein to boot. Now, with how expensive everything has gotten in the West, living off $1.30 per day like Xiao Jai Jai is probably unrealistic at this point. But from what I've personally tried and experienced, a $3 a day budget is very doable. Of course, this could be slightly more or slightly less depending on where exactly you live, but the point still stands that it'll be a significant step towards escaping the 9-to-5 wage slavery system. This highlights another point I've been harping on for quite some time now, which is that in this economy, in midst of this insane inflation, reducing your living expenses is just as, if not more valuable, than trying to earn more money. Gen Z has rightfully seen that busting your ass just to make more money, only to have the government print nonstop and constantly devalue that money, is a total waste of time. But reducing your dependency on money, well, that's how you truly hurt those in power, as this comment puts perfectly. Hey guys, you may have noticed we're starting to get very close to 20,000 subscribers now. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for this incredible, rapidly growing community we're building here. If you're new here and enjoying this content, definitely consider subscribing and helping us get closer to this magic number. Thank you guys so much. You guys are the best. Part 2, Geohacking. Now, one thing that's undoubtedly made the economy significantly worse for young people today than what our parents had is the rise of globalization. We're having to compete against literally millions more immigrants and outsourced jobs than the previous generations could even fathom. What if, however, you could play the opposite side of the globalization coin and use it to your advantage instead? Well, this is what geohacking is, and after how bad you've been screwed over by globalization, this is more than fair game. Geohacking is nothing new. It involves simply securing some sort of online income and moving abroad where your living expenses are significantly lower. I know this strategy very well because this is actually exactly what I did in my own personal quest of escaping the 9-to-5 rat race myself. What I didn't know, however, was just how much further you can take it these days. There are places like Thailand, Vietnam, Georgia, and Albania where you can live off as little as just $300 per month. Yes, you heard that right, $300 per month. How the hell is this possible, you might ask? Well, let's break it down. Here's an article with a detailed breakdown on the cost of living in Albania. In the capital Tirana, an apartment is between 400 to 600 euros per month in the city, but in the suburbs you can find options for as little as $250 to $400 per month. Now, let's say you find one for $300. To take this a step even further, you could find a friend who has a similar mindset of escaping the 9-to-5 to tag along this journey with you. And then you could split the rent and, as roommates, each only pay $150 per month. Food is much cheaper in Albania as well. And as we already talked about with revenge saving, it's even possible to live off $100 for food in the West. So in Albania, it should be more than doable. Now, you've paid off your rent and food with just $250 per month. And this leaves you with $50 a month left over for any various miscellaneous living expenses you might have. Now, of course, $300 a month is really super minimalistic and uncomfortable, even in Albania. I'm just saying it's technically possible, but obviously insanely difficult unless you have the absolute utmost level of mental discipline. Probably I would say a more realistic range to aim for is between $700 to $800 a month. That way you can actually live comfortably and enjoy life a bit. One key lesson to learn from all this is that Gen Z, through finding these creative, unexpected ways to live without a job, has also redefined what it means to earn a living. I get comments all the time from boomers being like, but not everyone can make a living as an influencer or through their dreams and passions. Well, first of all, with how awful the job market is, the exact same logic applies to normal 9-to-5 jobs now too. Not everyone can even get a normal 9-to-5 job anymore either, as we are all painfully aware of. Second of all, when you find ways to creatively reduce your living expenses and your dependency on society in general, it becomes a lot easier to make a living doing what you love. Sure, not everyone can be Mr. Beast, but if you only have to spend $1.30 per day on food, then making a living through your passions becomes a lot more achievable, as the definition of a living itself is just a few dollars per day rather than having to make $100,000 a year just to pay back your ridiculous student loan debts. Part 3. Extreme survivalism. What if you had absolutely nothing? $0 saved up, 0 job prospects, and 0 support from your family. A common response I get in a lot of my videos is that these solutions don't work for everyone. Not everyone can make it as an influencer, not everyone has good parents that they can live with, or just has enough saved up to start their own business idea. Well, this is something that literally anyone could do, even if you had absolutely no money saved up at all. Though I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for reasons you're soon about to see. This is Eric Grankvist. You can consider him the absolute final boss Giga Chad of escaping the 9-to-5. About 6 years ago, when Eric graduated high school, he found himself in the same situation as a lot of you. Hailing from Stockholm, Sweden, he couldn't find much meaning in going any of the traditional routes, such as working a 9-to-5 or going to college. So as a result, he felt extremely lost and had no clue what he wanted to do in life. Then one day, he saw a documentary of the legendary American survivalist Richard Perneck and became inspired to take a similar journey of his own. And so he ventured out into the middle of the woods with nothing but himself, his awesome dog, and a few basic survival tools. 6 years later, he's now built a fully renovated and cozy, spacious log cabin with a kitchen and even an underground food cellar and heating system. He hunts, gathers, and grills all his own food and lives purely off the land in the most literal sense. This is the truest form of self-dependency right here. I kind of laugh when people say you need to get a job because it's not good to be dependent on the government or your parents. But getting a job doesn't make you independent at all. It just makes you dependent on a corporation instead. Now, this guy, this right here, this is true independence. Let's spend some time talking about how Grankvist actually pulls this off. Grankvist first scouts a location lush with free food resources such as elderberries and beets. He moves very slowly and deliberately in order to conserve energy. The first priority is to find a source of fresh, clean water, as the human body can go a few weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. You can find this in the wild by tapping into the sap of a birch tree, or simply by boiling water from a stream. He then forages for easy food sources such as beets and elderberries, which are quite abundant in nature. You can also catch fish from nearby streams as well. Then, you can set up a simple structure like a debris hut as a temporary shelter to keep you dry and safe while you work towards your ultimate goal of building a log cabin. Then finally, the process of building the cabin begins. Logging, debarking, and building the cabin one piece at a time. It took Grankvist years to build up this cabin, but the advantage of this is that once he finished building it, it was his and his alone. None of this working your whole life just to never be able to own a house anyways that we have to go through today. Grankvist documented his entire journey on YouTube and has even secured a sponsor from a solar battery company, which allows him to live off the grid and do YouTube. He's accumulated millions of views and subscribers, and at this point, he definitely has enough money to move back into society and live a pretty lavish lifestyle if he wanted. But it doesn't seem like he even wants to at this point. His channel is still quite active, and even after 6 years of living in the wild, he seems to be at peace, just enjoying the peaceful connection he's found with nature, and is straight up just more content and happy out there. And after all the insanity of the ridiculous modern world we live in today, I honestly can't say I blame him. Now, again, I must reiterate, this is obviously insanely risky and dangerous, so try this at your own risk. This is not any sort of professional life advice whatsoever. I personally would recommend any of the other options we discussed in the video before considering this as a last resort. I just figured I'd include it because I found the story to be incredibly inspiring, and for those of you who are really stuck at zero right now, with no money and no support from your family, this might be your best option if you would really rather do anything than work a 9 to 5. So, these are all of the ways Gen Z is finding incredible, creative ways to be professionally unemployed. I've spent a lot of time in my videos talking about why Gen Z is morally and logically correct for not wanting to work these soulless, dead-end 9 to 5 jobs. But I've come to realize recently that this isn't just about being heard or validated anymore. This is literally our future survival at stake here. Even if 9 to 5 jobs were perfect, even if they all still paid well, even if bosses were amazing people who treated us well, the cold, hard, brutal truth that your delusional boomer parents don't want to admit is that there simply isn't going to be enough jobs for everyone anymore. I don't know all the solutions, and I'm not saying the ones in this video can save everyone. But the bottom line here is that we need to make a drastic shift in our mentality. It's no longer about Gen Z doesn't want to work anymore, but rather we will all have to find a way to survive and live a meaningful life without having to depend on 9 to 5 jobs that are rapidly dying out. On top of all this, modern day working conditions are so bad that even the most successful billionaire CEOs like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk wouldn't bother working today if they were young again. We explore this more in depth in this video right here. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.